The Hidden Haunted Mansion is an Irish story. Once upon a time, in a small village in Ireland, there was an old mansion that no one approached. The villagers called the mansion Hidden Mansion and were afraid. There was a deep forest around the mansion, and few people set foot in the forest. The villagers told them that at night they could hear strange noises coming from the mansion. One day, the boy Jack heard about the mansion from his grandfather, who lived on the outskirts of the village. That mansion used to be inhabited by a noble family, but one night the mansion was burned down by fire. Since then, no one has set foot in the mansion. When he finished speaking, he warned Jack. Never go near that mansion. However, even when Jack listened to his grandfather's story, his interest outweighed his anxiety. Is it really haunted? Jack was puzzled and decided to head to the mansion. Under the moonlight, Jack left the village and approached the old mansion timidly. The mansion was nothing special from the outside. The window glass was broken, and the door was only creaking in the wind. However, as Jack stepped into the mansion, a cold wind blew through and something strange floated in the air. The mansion was terribly dilapidated, with very little furniture left, but Jack looked around with his eyes wide open. At that time, I suddenly heard a creaking sound from the top of the stairs. It was as if someone was making footsteps. Jack stopped and gasped. I could see that my heart was pounding. Is there anyone? Jack raised his voice, but there was no reply. However, there was another creaking footstep. Jack was terrified, but he was determined to keep going. As he made his way to the back of the mansion, Jack climbed the stairs to the hallway on the second floor. There was a room where no one was supposed to live there. The door of the room was ajar and Jack couldn't help but push it open. At that moment, along with the cold air wafting in the room, what appeared in front of him was a thin shadow. It resembled the figure of a family that once lived in the mansion, but its face was not visible. The shadow approached Jack and held out his cold hand. You. Who? Jack asked tremblingly. Then the shadow began to speak quietly. I am the last family left in this mansion. When we lost our lives in the fire, the mansion was cursed. We are still tied to this place. When Jack heard the story, his heart ached. Then you guys are here forever? He asked. The shadow nodded slowly. We will not be freed anymore. But if you accept the curse instead of us, the mansion will be freed. Jack thought for a while, but eventually made up his mind. I will not be afraid and will help you. With that, Jack accepted the curse wholeheartedly. At that moment, the room was filled with light, and the shadows disappeared. In front of Jack, the spirits of the family of the mansion appeared and said with a smile, Thank you. Thanks to you, we are freed. Jack was then able to return safely to the village. The mansion was no longer a terrible place, and the villagers were able to live in peace afterwards. A few years later, Jack became a village hero and the mansion was no longer talked about. However, sometimes, under the moonlight, the villagers would smile heartwarmingly, remembering Jack's courageous actions. End.